Welcome. I'm Dr. Gretchen Bleicher, and I'm honored to begin this journey with you. In my years of clinical practice, research, teaching, I've witnessed something profound. When we bring compassion, curiosity, and embodied awareness to our inner lives, our bodies, our energy, and our minds, we create the conditions for deep healing and authentic sexual well-being. This podcast, The Sacred Garden Mandala, is an invitation to cultivate your inner landscape with care, an invitation to explore sexuality as a source of vitality, meaning, and connection, and an invitation to walk this path together, whether you're seeking healing, awakening, renewed intimacy, or a more grounded relationship with yourself. Thank you for being here. Let's begin. This is episode 2, the mandala as a map of sexual well-being. I'm inviting you to create space together for slowing down, for listening to the body, and for remembering that sexual well-being is something we cultivate, not something we fix. Wherever you are right now, if you're walking, resting, driving, tending to home in any way, you are welcome here. And this episode is meant to arrive with you, not to pull you away from your life. Also, I'd like to share a self-care note that this episode and the following episodes are educational and reflective. So this isn't meant to act as therapy, and nothing here sets up any kind of performance standard. I want you to know that if anything feels activating, please know that you have many choices, including to pause, ground, connect with yourself, maybe even come back later, or you choose support that is safe for you. Also, I'll be using different language. And when I'm using non-dual language, I also want to be clear that I'm using it phenomenologically, so as a way to describe lived experience, so rather than a metaphysical claim. And a theme throughout our time is that I respect, and I also want to honor that you are always the authority on your pace and your experience. So let's begin. Let's begin with two images that travel together in this work, the mandala and the garden. A mandala is an ancient form found across cultures, a circular image that reflects wholeness, relationship, and coherence. The mandala is a way of organizing complexity into some things that we can see and feel. And in this episode, I want to use the mandala like a map, not a map to judge or to score or to diagnose, and definitely not to tell you what you should experience, just to help you locate where you are so you can choose the next step with care. Because so many people might come to sexuality and reflections around sexuality, carrying questions and inquiries about maybe wondering why things don't feel better. Why does this feel hard? Why does connection feel fragile? Or maybe wondering, why does my body protect myself even when I want closeness? And many other potential questions or challenges. So I want to share some of what I've learned through many years of studying, practice, teaching, and listening, is that when we're having these questions or challenges, they don't indicate personal failures. And they're often pointing to navigation problems, because many of us, culturally, we were never given a map to navigate. So the Sacred Garden Mandala is one possible offering of a map. So not as a rule book, again, but really as an orientation, a way to sense where you are, what's happening, and what you need. And to gather this information in ways of relating with self that doesn't include shame. It includes compassion and curiosity. The mandala gives us wholeness, an image of relationship and coherence. The garden reminds us that all of life, with ourselves, our body, energy, and mind, and in relationship with ourselves and others, all of this is alive. So, like gardens, our aliveness grows. It has seasons and needs tending, not controlling. So when we bring these together, something important happens. Sexual well-being stops being something that we perform intentionally or unintentionally or fix and becomes something that we cultivate with care. In a garden, we don't criticize or judge a plant for not blooming in winter. We look at the conditions. We try to understand the plants and the seasons and the cycles. And that's really the spirit of the sacred garden mandala. Another orientation that I'd like to offer is something referred to as two views of the mountain. This language comes through contemplative traditions, and it has been beautifully articulated by teachers like Dr. Nita Chenenstag and Dr. Joe Lewitzo, who have deeply influenced my understanding. So two views of the mountain. One from the base is a developmental view where we're learning skills, we're building our capacities, we're learning how to regulate our nervous systems, we're practicing healthy, effective communication, we're identifying our boundaries and practicing those self-instructions for safety and self-respect. And we're practicing regulating and understanding how all of these skills interrelate. And another view is discovery. So this might be the view from the top of the mountain. So rather than the developmental path where we're practicing effort and we're continuing to learn, the discovery view is more like the metaphor of you're already there. You have everything you need. We're on the summit already with this beautiful view, and we don't need to effort. And sometimes maybe what we're needing is remembering what we already have, what's already here. So this involves maybe softening effort, recognizing our innate worth and awareness. And perhaps there might be some unlearning. So unlearning might be around cultural messages, or maybe practices, automatic practices of self-protection that were once really helpful and maybe could benefit from some updating. So the developmental and the discovery views. In sexuality, we can get stuck in maybe one view, either endlessly trying to improve ourselves or by bypassing real wounds in the name of acceptance. So the mandala helps us hold both effort and ease, doing and undoing, healing and remembering. Another important relationship and lens is acknowledging the body as a temple, the sacred mandala. So at the heart of this work, it's a very simple, maybe a radical premise that the body is not an obstacle to awakening or intimacy. The body is the path. This understanding comes through many wisdom lineages, including Vajrayana Buddhism, somatic psychology, and embodied neuroscience. And I want to name clearly and with deep gratitude that my own understanding of the body as a sacred mandala has been profoundly shaped by my teachers. Tessa Pybus, whose mentorship over 2 decades ago modeled exquisite sensitivity to embodiment and relational presence. Dr. Joe Lewitzo, whose integration of neuroscience, contemplative practices, and healing has deeply influenced my clinical and spiritual framework. Dr. Nita Chenenstag, whose transmission of Tibetan medical and yogic lineages affirm the body as intelligent, responsive, and sacred. And Lama Tsultrim Alioni, whose teachings in the Chud lineage and mandala wisdom of Machit Lodram have shaped my understanding of compassion, fear, and embodied awakening. I offer this work not as an authority, but as a steward of what has been generously shared with me. What I share here is shaped by contemplative lineages, somatic science, and lived relationship, and it's offered in service of your own direct knowing. Now, to teach the sacred mandala as a map, I hold it through a few aligned lenses so we can honor both wisdom and practicality. Here's the thesis that we'll come back to again and again, that the most meaningful, intimate experiences tend to arise from presence, integration, authenticity, and relational attunement, not from technique, performance, or goal-directed striving. And that's really significant because that protects us from turning sexuality into another place where we feel evaluated and judged by ourselves or others. So this view transcends, is a way to transcend that judgment and also to not hold blissful experiences as something that we're striving for or that that we make them as goals. That the research shows that those blissful, joyful experiences are really emergent outcomes when foundational conditions are supported. So in the mandala metaphor, when the soil is healthy, the garden has a chance to bloom. So I'd like to share these 4 lenses. First, the mindful model of sexual health gives a teachable ethical scaffold. It helps us think in domains like mindfulness, self-awareness, sexual emotional health, intimacy, communication, and spirituality. Or if that word doesn't resonate with you, we can think about them as core beliefs or your personal values or ethics. And when I say ethics here, I don't mean rules imposed from the outside. Really, what this is pointing to are valuable protective supports that help us care for our vulnerability, agency, consent, and integrity. The second lens is phenomenological or non-dual, which this language gives us words for how our experience organizes from the inside, not what sexuality should feel like, but what is actually happening right now with sensations, emotions, personal meaning, awareness. And here, nothing is dismissed and nothing is forced. A third lens, which integrates research on optimal intimacy, sometimes called magnificent sex or sublime sex. And this research draws from qualitative studies by Dr. Peggy Kleinplatz and Dr. Dana Ménard. One of the key takeaways here is simple and, quite honestly, relieving. That deep intimacy, pleasure, and connection don't come from technique or performance. In their research, interviewing people who have different relationship structures, they have different, different ages, many different uniquenesses. And they also use the metaphor of a mountain, that there are many different pathways up to the summit, but the shared experiences include that connection, and the experiences of magnificent sex tend to emerge when conditions align, when there's safety, presence, authenticity, and attunement. The fourth lens, the mandala itself, along with the 5 elements and related Vajrayana mandala wisdom, offers an embodied way to understand patterns, not as problems, but as pathways. Even intense or protective energies can be met with respect and refined with care. So this is something that we'll also be working with, that we are looking to really listen and be attuned to these energies that are rising These protective energies are really important. They carry really valuable information. Safety and respect and clarity are what weave through all of our information that we really are seeking to be attuned with our inner guidance system. So we really want to use respect and ethics, and we want to protect our inner space and our relational spaces. So experience teaches from within. Research shows what can possibly emerge. And the mandala reminds us that even if our most difficult patterns are happening, when we bring awareness and curiosity and wisdom there, we can translate them so they are in their wisdom expression. They're guarding. There are inner guardians. And some of the additional metaphors that we'll be using are our inner protections as our inner guardians that take care of our precious treasures. So now let's talk about the map itself. The Sacred Garden Mandala has 3 interrelating zones. The center, so if you want to visualize this, so there are 3 interrelating zones. So the center, and then around the center is an inner ring, and around the inner ring is an outer ring. And these are not stages that you graduate from. They're zones of experience that are always in relationship. So they're also not they're interrelating. They're always in relationship. And we'll explore more about what that means. The center is presence, your inner light, your core sense of self. In the mindful model of sexual health language, this includes mindfulness and self-awareness. In phenomenological language, it's about less monitoring and more direct contact with experience. In research language, it shows up as being present and being real, authentic. So less performance, more truth and honesty. So here's an inner question, if you'd like to receive this, to check in with yourself. What feels most true, alive, and self-honoring at my core? So before there might be any patterns of trying to please somebody else or maybe achieve or perform. So this is something maybe to, if you want to listen to your inner wisdom, maybe reveal something now or take this question with you. What feels most true, alive, and self-honoring at my core before I try to please or achieve or perform? And here's an embodied somatic prompt if you'd like to participate. So if comfortable for you, placing a hand on your heart or maybe your lower belly, wherever it feels you're tuning into yourself. And in the next few cycles of breathing, allow your exhales to become slower, longer. And as you're tuning into your body and breathing, quietly name here, directing your attention here now. When you're directing inside here now, allow your awareness to notice one body sensation that indicates that you're present. Maybe it's temperature, warmth, contact of your body, if you're sitting or walking, your breathing, sounds that are happening. Nothing to fix here, just arriving. This is making contact with you, all parts of you, your inner environment, maybe how your senses are taking in the outer environment. And now back to the structure of the garden mandala. So the next is the inner ring, protection and care. This is the layer that makes deeper connection possible. It includes boundaries, our nervous system, whatever inner states, or maybe regulating our nervous system, pacing, and where things are tender, where we need healing, where we need support. And I want to say this clearly, the inner ring is not a problem to overcome. Our inner ring are where we get information about the conditions. So we might think about these as instructions for care, or our boundaries are actually what allow intimacy to be sustainable. So they don't prevent intimacy, they actually promote healthy intimacy. If you've ever felt your body tighten, or maybe experience of numbness or bracing or self-protection or pulling away even when you wanted closeness, I want to assure and confirm and support that these messages, the language of our bodies are not betraying us. They're information for us to pay attention to. And in this automatic way, this information may be sending signals for our safety or protection. So we're bringing our conscious awareness, our wisest, caring, compassionate self to interrelate and to listen to this important information. So this is the work that we're practicing. And in this work, we don't try to defeat these inner protectors. If you'd like to think about them as your inner dragon or your inner alarm or your inner guidance system. So we're really we're learning to listen. We want to understand and we want to care for what is important and precious to guard. So I have another question for you, if you'd like to allow this question to just drop inside, either to listen to what might arise now or to take it with you for later. For you, what supports safety, tenderness, emotional truth in your sanctuary? What do you know about what conditions support safety for you? So when you can feel your body, my shoulders just relaxed even just thinking about that. What supports safety? What helps your body feel at ease? To be open and to be have contact with tender parts, either with yourself or invite a trusted other person in, or to access emotional truth in your inner sanctuary. And what either patterns or maybe circumstances do you know that reliably disrupts safety? And on a scale of 1 to 10, so we want to create safety here in working together, since this is a podcast, that this is not therapy. So maybe choosing something on a scale of 1 to 10, let's go for like a 3 or 4 or 5, something that creates discomfort for you. So that in this inquiry, consciously, we're not consciously going to something that is maybe traumatic. If that happens, please take care of yourself and know that, again, you can always pause and, return in another way. But if something is coming up and you need maybe support, so I will also share resources for you if you need additional resources from the care team that you have, and friends and support and loved ones. So we are learning to listen. We're learning to understand and tune in and understand what is supporting safety, emotional truth. And so we're tending to our inner sanctuary. And here's another somatic prompt. So bringing awareness to your whole body and maybe bringing awareness to your throat, to your chest, to your belly. And on an inhale, notice if anything tightens. Or on the exhale, maybe inviting your shoulders to soften. So bringing carrying awareness as you inquire what your body shows and shares when you feel safe and when there's a felt yes in your body. And so when you tune into your intuition, to your inner guidance system, to your body, to your emotional life, your heart, how does your whole self communicate a felt yes? Yeah, and so listening and then also thanking yourself for sharing that information in this maybe unconscious, automatic way. Now, I'm going to ask about a felt no. So if you'd like to participate. So what's a felt no? So, and we don't need a story, just a sensation. So let that be valid information. And so something you're not comfortable or a no. So how does your body show you no? And so what we're learning here is to listen even when the no is a whisper. We're learning the language of our bodies, our nervous system, so that we're tuning in and we're listening even when it's a whisper. So it doesn't have to get up to a scream to get our attention. So we're bringing that kind of trust and care and increasing our vocabulary within ourselves. So now let's explore the outer ring. So the outer ring is about expression. So what we can create and share when the center is present. So when we are present, connected to our core, and the inner ring, our inner ring is tended to. We're tuned in, we're attuned. So this outer ring, this is where intimacy, communication, creativity, play, meaning, and relational connection live. So it comes out from our center. So our center, the inner ring, and then expressing out. And again, all these rings are interrelating. In the mindful model of sexual health, this is the place where our lived practice of intimacy and communication are happening. In phenomenological language, it can feel like connection without losing yourself, right? So connection without betraying ourselves, connection without abandoning ourselves, right? So we're connecting with our center, and also that connecting with another, attunement without fusion. In optimal intimacy descriptions, this is where we often hear about exceptional communication, mutual exploration, and a felt sense of being met, being understood. And also that's bi-directional, right? So the outer ring, when there's safety, when the conditions are met with our inner ring, when we're grounded, we're connected with our center. There are some paradoxes, where when we are safe in our center, then we're able to open up and expand, and we are individuated beings, and we're also inseparable and interrelating with others. So these paradoxes both are true, our dual nature and our non-dual nature. So yeah, so this is nothing we have to really conceptually understand. These are paradoxes and are interesting realities that coexist. So I'd like to offer another embodied prompt, some things to tune into your body. Notice the rhythm of your breathing. And so this is an experiment. So you're tuning into you, without needing to change your breath. And an invitation to imagine somebody you trust, so a safe person, somebody you trust, standing nearby, a few feet away from you. So somebody that you experience as safe and loving. And now, so you're in the presence of this, this loving, safe person. And now bring your awareness back into your body, your own energy, your nervous system. And sense your response, your body's response, your nervous system response, while in relationship, while in the presence of this loving person. What's happening in your body? And do you lean forward? Do any parts of your body soften or warm, or maybe even contract or brace or go blank? So there's no one right way to respond. This is part of our information gathering. And now connecting with yourself. maybe state something that's true for you, one true sentence, either out loud or internally. So right now, about your needs. So right now, I need. So maybe if you're clear about something you need, or maybe this is an opportunity for an inner inquiry, an inner question. Let this drop inside. What do I need right now? And listen. So whether you're clear about a need or you're listening, so knowing what happens in your body, and all this is information for you when you either name a need with kindness, when you're proactively asking your inner wisdom what you need. So before we go further, I'd like to share a few very brief, de-identified, anonymous clinical composites that translate the people's different experiences individually or relationally into the sacred garden mandala. So we're working with this structure and getting to know the structure of the sacred garden mandala, the center, your inner knowing, the inner ring, safety and boundaries, outer ring, intimacy and expression. And now we're including the elements, which let's think of the elements as inner weather. So wind, we can think about them as our thoughts, our words, our breathing. Fire is heat or drive or illumination. Water, feelings. Earth, grounding. Space, perspective. So if anything feels activating, again, please pause or skip ahead. I'd like to share a few vignettes. So the first one, so the theme here, just so you know, is about betrayal and tuning into the body's alarm. So I'd like to share with you briefly about a woman who was living with chronic confusion and anxiety. And then she discovered a major sexual betrayal in her relationship, her partner, and a privacy violation that she was experiencing. And her body responded with hypervigilance and dissociation. And she learned how to tune in and then rebuilt safety through support and clear boundaries. She listened to herself. She had support that she needed. She named what was happening, and she engaged in her own inner healing. So in this mandala translation, so for her center, her inner light was getting obscured by the experiences of being gaslit. So she was experiencing her partner gaslighting her, and that was contributing to self-doubt. And in her healing and recovery, that involved returning to her inner knowing and her values. So she recovered from doubting herself here. So she really tuned into being connected with her self-trust center, the inner ring. Her boundaries were breached. There were violations and dishonesty, coercion. There were power control dynamics. So her healing, integrating safety structures and boundaries that were important for her safety and support. So inner ring, healing for her was safety structures, identifying boundaries and making choices and regulating and continuing to tune in to update those boundaries when needed, and ongoing support. That was the inner ring. So now let's look at the outer ring. So for her, that intimacy couldn't reliably bloom until her inner ring was repaired. So connection becomes possible only after protection and safety is honored. So it's not pathology to not be expressive with one's sexuality when there are violations and when things are not safe. So it's really important not to pathologize a body's response for protecting, even, whether it's kind of automatic or there are choices. Outer ring. The conditions for her were not met for that connection with a partner. So when we bring in the five elements, and again, this is inner weather, the inner felt senses. So wind can show up as anxious scanning or racing thoughts. Water as overwhelm and grief. Earth for her was about restoring her connection and safety, and it was rebuilt through steadiness and clear limits and consistent support. Safety for her returned in her inner first space when clarity was confirmed and her perspectives of reality were honored. So a gentle inquiry, if you're open, about your inner ring as a garden and as a garden wall that protects your safety. So what strengthens for you your inner ring? Is it having enough rest, truth and honesty with yourself and between others, having support, boundaries, and what reliably maybe crosses this wall, crosses a boundary. So where do you feel alarm in your body? Where do you get the information from your inner ring? Your body, your throat, chest, belly, your heart. And what helps your inner ring feel protected? Truth, consistency, time, boundaries that are respected, community that's supportive. So here's another vignette. In couples therapy, a man in the session suddenly realized, had an aha moment, that he had been relating to his wife as more of an object than a whole person. And so he remarked, with kind of wide eyes looking at his wife, that there's a soul inside your body. And as he was practicing empathy and responsiveness, and their connection had been not what either one of them had wanted. And he was realizing that he was objectifying her rather than relating with her as a whole being. And that led to that realization, then helped their relationship to take care of the inner ring, honor the sacred center so they could feel more connection. So in the Mandala translation, the center, presence replaces performance. So even when there's love and care in a relationship, if we have a view of sexuality as performative, then we're not connecting with our own center. So arousal becomes connected to awareness when we're connecting with our center rather than a scripted fantasy. The inner ring, safety grows through empathy, through consent ongoing, and the experience of being regarded as fully human, a full whole being. And the outer ring, intimacy and pleasure expand when communication and responsiveness are restored. When we bring in working with awareness of the five elements here, again, our felt sense, the inner weather, for this couple, fire shifts from consuming or having an urgent expression to a warmth and being connected for each person with their own inner vitality and respecting each other's inner light and their vitality. Water returns as tenderness and emotional flow. Space opens as curiosity and awe. And earth stabilizes the bond through reliability and repair. So an inquiry for you, if you choose to take this in. So in your own life, what helps you feel experienced as a full person, not as a role to play? So are there things that help during intimacy? What signals from you or what signs from another person support your experience of being met for you? Is it eye contact or listening, pacing, consent, check-ins? Each person is honored for their inner experience. Their inner experience is being understood and checked in about. Another case vignette. A man in recovery in therapy admits that his pornography use trained and conditioned his unconscious comparison with his partner to the pornography that I was using. And even unintentionally, this made his partner experience the feeling of not enough. The truth for this couple and this person becomes a turning point because when he acknowledged that reality and he took accountability and was honest and practiced transparency, and then in their relationship, real repair began to build and to repair trust and rebuild trust and desire over time. So how does this translate to the mandala? So for the center here, integrity was allowed to grow when denial ended and truth was spoken. And authenticity replaces defensiveness. So sometimes denial, and when operating in denial, there's that automatic defensiveness that is a barrier to seeing the truth with oneself and with others. With the inner ring, the repair they engaged in required accountability, consistent transparency, and a commitment to empathy. So not just reassurance. It was the lived experiences need to update. So it's the felt experience, not just the words. And the outer ring. Pleasure becomes possible when erotic connection is mutual and relational, rather than driven by comparison and fantasy scripts. So the 5 elements and the felt sense. Fire can burn as shame or defensiveness. And then when we bring in wisdom and understanding, we can refine that energy into the light of awareness and compassion that helps us with courage and to cultivate that courage with kindness. Wind becomes honest communication. Water includes remorse and grief, and full, like kind of awakening, thawing out anything that was frozen, or cooling down anything that was reactive and reactive with anger and rage. So the feeling all the feelings in a safe way. Earth is rebuilt through steady repair and behaviors over time. And to offer a gentle inquiry for you, if your nervous system could speak, what would it need in order to trust erotic connection again? Maybe after a betrayal, or if there was dishonesty, or if there was even a misunderstanding in terms of agreements in a relationship, and there was a damage to safety and trust. So what would be important for your nervous system, for your body, for your emotions, for your heart, for your mind to trust erotic connection again? Would it be time, ongoing honesty and truth over time, consistency, reassurance, boundaries being honored? Anything else? And I'd like to share one final vignette. So a woman who's in therapy was describing how secrecy and denial harmed her self-worth and her sexuality. Her desire was decreasing because her body was protecting herself. And she was unaware that her partner was secretly watching pornography, problematic pornography use. And so he wasn't being honest with her. And when her experience was named and validated, she was able to rebuild that safety, rebuild, ground safety with her body, grounding, support, and identifying the boundaries that she needed, space and clarity and meaning. So this is an example of how the information from the body is valuable, and maybe even in terms of the sacred garden mandala, when no is sacred information. So her body was letting her know information before her conscious mind understood it. So with the mandala translation for her center, reconnecting with herself was about reclaiming her connection with herself, her self-trust, her self-worth, and reality testing, knowing that she can trust herself, that it's not, she's not confused, or she's not crazy, quote, or that her inner knowing matters. She can trust her body, she can trust her intuition. And for the inner ring, that protector response that we've been talking about, the inner dragon, or the these are interoception and our nervous system, and all the maybe subtle or maybe sometimes not so subtle, loud information that we experience. That protective response might be expressing with aversion, with a no, a withdrawal, or sometimes it's numbness or bracing, that self-protection. And all of that information is valid, and healing requires validation, understanding, that makes sense. And also tuning into what support is needed. So for the long term and for the short term. So whether the support is within oneself, having community, and also in relationship, having clear agreements that reduce unwanted vulnerability or vulnerability that doesn't feel safe yet. And the outer ring, intimacy that maybe is no longer an obligation. So that would be a really important part, so that the center is honored, contact and their safety. The inner ring is providing all of the conditions for the outer ring expression, where engaging in a sensual or sexual experience there is 100% free of any sense of obligation. And there are choices, inner agency. That choice and our belief that choice is there only returns when safety, respect, and attunement are restored. Bringing in the 5 elements to explore that felt sense of how things might feel, correlating with the water element that might feel like grief, or maybe even flow or trembling or tears. Wind might feel like intrusive questioning or racing mind. Sometimes we use the word hypervigilance, that seeking information, seeking safety. The earth is strengthened by support groups, trusted friends, and routines that stabilize the body. And space expands for experiences that are named and validated. And so here's a gentle inquiry. So if you'd like to participate in information when your body says no to intimacy, can you treat that as a sacred communication, an inner ring message, rather than a particular problem or a failure? So that valuing that information. So when and if your body says no, do you treat it that way, as sacred information? And how can we work with earth to stabilize, ground, connect, maybe with sleep, taking care of the body, or maybe relating with friends, or therapies, practicing support and safety, spiritual practices maybe. And what helps you find space, naming the truth, being clear? Does journaling help, or talking with a trusted friend? So these are some examples of the map in action from a clinical perspective. So in that we can maybe draw some if things resonate or don't resonate. But the themes here are, rather, instead of blaming ourselves for not blooming, for not expressing, for not being, exuding joy or happiness, we need to maybe go on the inside to locate what needs tending, center, inner ring, or outer ring. So we can tune in this loving, caring way, bringing the light of awareness and listening. What part of your garden needs care right now? So to make this even simpler, so if we want to look at the 5 elements as weather in the body, I'll talk about the elements again: wind, fire, water, earth, space, and the different qualities. So wind, the qualities of our thoughts and our mind, or the movement of breath, the conveying of our words, and also our nervous system energy, our nervous system inner states associated with wind. Fire, associated with desire, heat, light, the light of awareness, like the heat from the fire, and the light it brings into darker places. Also, it's mobilization of creativity, or could be intensity, or could be information about irritation, or in wisdom expression with courage, are associated all with the fire element. Water element associated with emotions, tenderness, feeling all of our feelings, which could include grief. Also joy, a lot of having things flow. When we're feeling, these energies are flowing. Emotions are energy in motion. Water, earth, the quality of earth, steadiness, groundedness, rootedness, support. So associated with earth are maybe our routines that help us, these structures of our self-care that help our body of earth, maintain healthy habits of sleep and nourishing ourselves, and also boundaries that are important. And those are all associated with earth. Space. So this is when we come back to our center, we create space. We tune into the space that's already here. So that helps us with space, slow down, room to breathe. And sometimes then when we're connected in our safety mode with space, contact with our center, we have access to clear perspectives. We can access our personal meaning. We can identify possible choices. So center, space. So going back to the structure of the mandala garden, the rings tell you where you are. Center, inner, outer. The elements tell you what it feels like there right now. So what's the weather? And all these elements, of course, the elements are all interrelating as well. So to create the inner weather, inner emotions. Also, I'd like to offer, if it helps, to imagine this mandala as having qualities and maybe in our expressions, the petals that often cluster when sexual well-being is supported. So again, this information comes from the research about sublime sex or magnificent sex. So again, these are not goals, they're not requirements, but they're recurring patterns that people report when the conditions are right. When the garden conditions are, the soil is nourished, the light and the temperature and the seasons and everything is supporting these blossomings of the petals. So I'll share from the research that nine qualities or 9 petals. So 1 is being present. So this is an important quality, being present. 2, authenticity, less performance, more truth, honesty, authenticity. 3, wholeness or integration. So when there's more coherence across body, mind, and meaning. 4, deep erotic intimacy, erotic depth grounded in safety. 5, energetic connection. This is attunement without losing yourself. Like tuning into you and another without performing, without self-betrayal, without self-abandonment. 6, exceptional communication, clear, empathic, verbal, and nonverbal exchange of information in a welcoming way, in a respectful way. 7, supported vulnerability, emotional nakedness without collapse. 8, mutual exploration, maybe qualities of curiosity, play, shared discovery, which all happen when there's presence. 9, awe or sacredness. So when there's meaning, that is deep, maybe even that words don't necessarily convey. There's this sense of reverence, timelessness. So this is never required. This might, like a peak experience, happen, when those conditions are there. And again, this isn't a checklist. There are possibilities that can emerge when the garden is tended well and cared for. Before we close, I want to bring in my co-producer, Dee Daniels. Dee, from a podcast craft perspective, what would you want listeners to know about how to use an episode like this?
Well, Gretchen, 2 things really come to mind for me. First, you don't have to, quote unquote, get it all. Let it really be a listening experience, not a test of something. And second, replaying is actually part of the design. So one idea at a time, one pass at a time, then maybe a second idea, second pass. I really like that.
Yes, good. Okay, that's helpful. I love that because yeah, this kind of letting things kind of wash over as an experience, like a wave again and again. And I love that it's not a test. Yes, we don't I certainly don't need memory tests or that I it takes me many, many times to process things. So even through direct experience, and that's actually how these practices are meant to be offered that that people can their inner wisdom might choose one thing at a time. So even though I've been saying a lot of things, I love that it's is perfect for aligning with the process. So if someone's feeling a little overwhelmed by the concepts, again, I know I shared a lot of information. um, what would you recommend, like a simple way to like get come back to center or clear or ground or to stay with the experience?
I think maybe just pick an anchor phrase. Like, I loved some of these phrases that you said that are already sticking with me, like map, not a grade.
Mhm.
What's the weather in my body? I really loved that one.
Mhm.
Just notice it once a day. Also, a pause is allowed. You can actually
Mhm.
stop and breathe and come back to the center that you're talking about. That feels really good.
Okay, that's so helpful. Thank you, Dee. From your perspective, what might make a show like this feel safe to listen to? Because I know that there's a high percentage of us who have negative experiences or traumatic experiences around sexuality. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, what would be helpful and create safety?
I think it's all about good pacing and permission. I think the permission to do those things we were just talking about, stop and breathe and come back to center. When the host actually reminds you that you're in charge of your pace,
Mm-hmm.
again, you know it internally somewhere, but that
Mhm.
reminder really does mean everything. And you really did that today with the care notes and the gentle prompts. It's that permission and the pace and that reminder that really brings me back, and I think will bring others back to center as well.
Thank you, because that's so important. That's really safety is first. That's foundational. So thank you. And I maybe like to offer again, maybe to you, maybe to everybody listening, for myself. Also, maybe you can inner inquiry as we close, choosing one small seed this week, center, inner ring, or outer ring, about maybe what would be curious or what we feel drawn to tend. And maybe I'll list some additional possibilities about tending to experiment with, and maybe we'll put these in the show notes as well, so you can come back to them to read. Um, about maybe one option is to, if you had to name an inner weather, whether it's about like overall of the day or the changing weather of the day. So what would it be? So maybe wind again, maybe be if there's an imbalance of wind, maybe busy thoughts, fire, drive, or maybe irritation or desire, water, emotions, feelings, earth, grounding, space, maybe associated with perspective. So it's listening to inner weather, what's present. Another option is identifying one small center practice that actually works for you in real life, like one slow exhale, or a hand on your heart, or it's just simply saying your inner voice or even outer voice, here now. Or maybe a practice of inquiring about the inner ring. So, what does the inner ring look like in plain language for you? So, maybe identifying one or two boundaries, or again, that these are conditions. that are helpful, important, imperative maybe, so to support your safety, to feel safe. Another option is when your body gives you a no, what helped you respect it? To really care for, to inner listen and to take action. And what would that mean to treat the no as protective wisdom? Another option of how to tuning into the outer ring and inquiring, what does healthy expression mean to me? What's important? Healthy expression with communication, maybe play, tenderness, sensuality, creativity. These don't all have to revolve around sensuality or sexuality. So when you have contact with your center safety, your inner ring is supportive, what does healthy expression feel like or mean to you? And what's one way you'd love to see that grow? Also, if a listener is thinking, okay, but where do I start? What would you say is the first step? So maybe we could, maybe the first step is to connect with center, presence, and let that be it. And maybe, again, bringing hand to heart or a breath, or maybe even sometimes for people, tuning into the breath isn't necessarily the first helpful thing. So sometimes it's grounding. So visualizing from your feet or from your body, like sensing the earth beneath you. That can be stabilizing, grounding. And one question, maybe if listeners would like to take with this week, what part of my garden needs care most right now? And also for listeners, if there are things that would be helpful that you would like to know more about, or in a future episode would like us to unpack, whether it's around boundaries, desire, shame, communication, or healing after rupture, please do let us know. And I'm so grateful. Thank you for tuning in. And Dee, thank you so much. And for everybody who's listening, choose, again, maybe an invitation, one small seed, center, inner ring, or outer ring. What will you tend? And if you'd like to explore this sacred garden mandala practice visually or experientially, I've created a guided video called Personal Sacred Mandala Garden for Sexual Wellbeing. And I know I've shared a lot of information in this episode here. So if you'd like to go to my website, this is freely available, this video, and it includes a gentle mapping practice that integrates the sacred garden mandala, the 5 elements. And it also goes into some things that I'll be sharing in a future episode, the Buddha family and Dakini mandala wisdom, and the mindful model of sexual health, as well as the contemporary research on optimal intimacy. So you can find this on my website at www.healthsosamtherapy.com. And it's under the resources page. And think of this as a companion. It's certainly not homework, but if you'd like more information and some guidance, I'd love for you to find that website, healthsosamtherapy.com. And in future episodes, we'll return to each part of the mandala. So this is, again, a lot to take in. So really, we were going to be revisiting all of these, the structure, the lived experience, and how it might relate in different ways. We'll return all of this again and again. So the center, the inner ring, the outer ring, and we'll explore how they show up in real relationships, real bodies, real lives. So for now, as we close, I want to affirm that you are already whole. Your body is not betraying you. Your inner protectors have valuable information, and you have everything you need, and you are already inside the garden. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Garden Mandala. I'm deeply grateful you spent this time with me. If this episode supported you in any way, I'd love to stay connected. So please follow or subscribe wherever you listen. And if you feel moved to either leave a review or or also to share this with anybody else who might be interested in this kind of information or intimacy education without shame or pressure in a kind of a nature-based way. So please, share this episode with a friend who would appreciate this kind of gentle, body-honoring approach. And for companion resources, please visit my website at healthsasamtherapy.com. And if something resonated, let it be one small seed, so nothing to force. And you are whole. Your body has so much wisdom. Your body is not betraying you. And you are already inside this garden. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.